what'll change a person's life is when you realize there's also a set of seasons in your own life.
Well, the Doomsday Clock was set in 1947, shortly after the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
There's this seasons in nature, there's seasons in my life, and then there's seasons in history.
At that point, it was 7 minutes to midnight. A couple of years later, in 1952, moved to 2 minutes to midnight when the United States and Russia exploded thermonuclear weapons, showing that human intelligence had advanced, if that's the right word, to the point where it could destroy everything.
So watch this. This is what gives me great optimism for everyone watching here. First of all, winter's not forever. No pandemic lives forever. No, war lives forever. Nothing. Everything changes.
Later, the analysts abandoned minutes altogether, moved to seconds. It's now set at 90 seconds to midnight, for good reasons. It's set in January. I presume it'll move still forward towards midnight. We're now facing questions that have never arisen in human history. They will have to be answered soon, or else we're essentially finished.
Everything ends. It means something new occurs. You may not like it, but that's how life is.
Threat of nuclear war, which is growing both in Europe and in Asia. The other is the inexorable march towards climate destruction. We have a couple of decades in which to deal with it. Methods are pretty well known. If we don't pursue them, we will pass irreversible tipping points, and there'll be a steady decline to undescribable catastrophe. That's where we stand now.
And the good news about winter is it's always followed by springtime. Historically, some winters are long, some are short, but they're always followed by springtime. What follows the night? The daytime. What a cool way to set it up if you were God or the universe, right?
I think that's mostly science fiction.
So this is your time, but you have to get your head straight and you got to get your energy strong. And that's not easy when most people are shoved in their houses and isolated and heard nothing but fear. So you got to take back control.
There definitely is an attack on freedom of speech, even freedom to read.
And this is a book that anybody who really wants to know where the world's going, it's Ray Dalio's newest book, The Changing World Order. I mean, it's incredible. It's 500 years of history. So
in the United States, Ron DeSantis, running for president, as he just announced, has imposed regulations, laws in Florida, which make it illegal to teach authentic American history. You have to teach a kind of history which glorifies the United States.
Don't get me wrong. I know some people are not a good influence. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying you're more than somebody's influence unless you obsess about it every moment and make them wrong so you can make yourself feel superior morally, psychologically, or spiritually. That's bullshit. Stop the pattern. We've all done it. Catch yourself.
The libraries are being forced to throw out books.
And he just figured any product, books, was the easy one to start with, but he got himself in and then he started to learn the real secret. The convenience is what people value more than anything else. And when he honed in on that one distinction, he not only recognized the pattern, used the pattern, the people that are real masters create their own patterns.
There's laws passed to say there are topics you're not allowed to talk about.
Leaders anticipate, losers react. So imagine for a second, all of your listeners or viewers, and you think about it too. What if you're born in 1910?
This is such a remote contingency that I really don't see any. It doesn't seem to me worth considering very seriously, especially when we think of the imminent catastrophes that are quite real.
So from 1910, the next 19, 20 years of your life, you're going to be absorbing what was happening. World War I ends. The world looks like it's a great place. New technology, cars, radio, and then what happens? An explosion of abundance, the roaring 20s.
Well, I was born in 1928, right before the Great Depression.
It's 1929.
Which of course was far more severe than anything we've suffered recently.
Good times create weak people.
Fascism, as I was growing up as a young child, fascism was spreading through Europe, looked unstoppable.
Weak people create bad times.
When it seemed as if the fascist plague was unstoppable. Those were very dark moments.
Bad times create strong people.
It was clear that humans were moving towards the capacity to destroy everything that came a few years later. Go back to the 1960s.
Good times.
The 1960s, the United States had anti-miscegenation laws that were so extreme that the Nazis refused to accept them.
The past only equals your future if you live there. If you're using a rearview mirror to guide yourself, you're gonna crash.
In the 1960s, the United States did have federally subsidized housing, but it was segregated, not for blacks. That meant a black man could maybe get a job in an auto plant during the boom period of the 50s, but he couldn't use it to acquire wealth.
We got a whole culture that's always blaming somebody else for something in their life. But blame is not a strategy for pride. That's why you listen to these blaming people. They're all angry all the time. And this group of people, like millennials,
it's now called wokeness. If you want to know what critical race theory actually is, it's a small academic discipline which investigates systematic elements of racism in American education. They certainly exist. It's never reached the schools. Trump, as you saw during his first time, is dedicated. He's a paranoid, he's a megalomaniac psychopath. All that concerns him is me.
yes, there are people that you don't want to hang out with that will not serve you. But then move on.
If he runs again, it'll be a disaster for the world, for many reasons.
You've been hypnotized by a culture of weakness.
But he is a major climate denialist. He denies that global warming is taking place. He wants to maximize the use of fossil fuels, including the most dangerous of them, and to eliminate regulations which might mitigate the catastrophe. That's a death sentence for the human species.
And so what matters? A few subjects, your body, because your energy matters. That energy is low. Everything I just said is worthless to you. Because you're just gonna go, he's talking too fast and there's a lot going on and yeah, well, hopefully the future will be better. Because when you're low energy, you don't use your full intelligence or ability. Your growth is the only limit to your happiness. If you're not happy, you're not growing in some area. And usually it's a place where you're blaming, you're pointing the finger. I don't care if it's government, don't get me wrong. People can be unfair, unjust, that's for sure happens. But you can't control that. You can't make it not happen. Strong people create good times.
Thank you very much.